I sat at the defense table in family court hearing room 3B. Brett's lawyer stood at the petitioner's table, reading from the petition. Advanced dementia, unable to manage a multi-million-dollar construction business. Immediate conservatorship required for my own protection. Lies, all of it. Vanessa dabbed her eyes from the gallery, designer dress and flawless makeup contradicting the grieving wife act. Brett sat beside her in his tailored suit, wire-frame glasses catching the fluorescent light as he made notes on a leather portfolio. My business, my crew, already his in his mind. Melissa twisted a tissue, voice breaking on cue as she prepared to take the stand. Dr. Philip Strand took the stand first, shuffling papers before speaking. 45-minute evaluation, he testified. Significant cognitive decline observed. He listed symptoms, memory gaps, confusion. Never mentioned the 30 years I'd run Kowalczyk construction without a single failed project. Brett's lawyer produced medical records showing 6 months of confusion, mathematical errors. Repeated questions, fabricated incidents I recognized immediately, wrong dates, impossible locations. Someone had done their homework poorly. Melissa approached the witness stand, voice wavering on cue. He called Braden by the wrong name, twice. At Christmas, he seemed lost in his own house, kept asking what year it was. I watched her twist the tissue. At Christmas, I'd handed Braden and Connor their gifts without using either name. Called them both kiddo. Months before the holidays, I'd installed security cameras throughout the house, recording everything. Standard practice after Vanessa started acting strange. The footage would show that. The courtroom door opened. Ray Torres entered carrying 3 military footlockers, courthouse security having already cleared the contents that morning. Black composition notebooks visible through the gaps. Site logs, 30 years of them, one for every project. The footlockers hit the courtroom floor with 3 solid thuds. Elizabeth Chen stood at our table, legal pad in hand, 3 decades of cross-examination experience visible in her posture. Your Honor, we have 30 years of daily logs from every job site. Every decision Mr. Kowalczyk made, documented. Judge Morales looked up from Dr. Strand's credentials. Her expression changed. She'd seen his name before, in another case where his testimony hadn't held up. Her mouth tightened. Skepticism replaced professional neutrality. I sat perfectly still, hands folded on the table. Let them perform. The evidence would speak for itself. If you're still here, you'll love what's next, so hit subscribe. I started Kowalczyk construction at 23 with a single truck. Bought it used, 1983 Ford F-150 with rust spots and a transmission that slipped in 3rd gear. Paid cash, 3 years of laborer wages saved dollar by dollar. My father handed me the keys in our driveway and said 4 words. Paper doesn't lie, Lawrence. He meant documentation, receipts, contracts, daily logs. Everything written down, dated, filed. I'd watched him keep ledgers for his factory shifts, recording hours worked, equipment maintained, problem solved. When the plant laid him off after 22 years, his records proved they owed him vacation pay and overtime they'd tried to forget. He got every penny because he had proof. I kept my first ledger in that truck's glove box. Blue, 3-ring binder, college-ruled paper. My father's block lettering in the margins showing me how to format entries. His handwriting identical to the factory shift logs he'd kept for 22 years. Date, weather, job location, materials used, hours worked, problems encountered, solutions implemented. Every single day, no exceptions. When that binder filled, I bought another identical one. Then, another. 40 years later, floor-to-ceiling shelves at company headquarters hold every day of Kowalczyk Construction's existence. The business grew slow. Small residential jobs, deck repairs, garage additions, basement finishing. I worked alone for 2 years, then hired my first helper. By 30, I had 3 employees and a reputation for showing up when promised and finishing what I started. By 40, I'd moved into commercial work, strip mall renovations, and office build-outs. The crew hit 15 people. I bought the building that became headquarters, paid cash after saving for 6 years. Barbara made it possible. Met her at 17, married at 22, right before I bought the truck. She worked as a dental hygienist while I built the business. Her steady paycheck covering our rent and groceries so every construction dollar could go back into equipment and crew. She kept our household books with the same precision my father taught me. Sunday nights, we'd sit at the kitchen table, our ledgers open between coffee cups and calculator tape, her pen clicking as she checked my numbers. "You're just like your dad," she'd say, watching me write. He was right. "Paper doesn't lie." She'd smile. "No, but people do. That's why you write it down." We raised Brett and Melissa in a split level in Wauwatosa, comfortable neighborhood with good schools. I worked 70-hour weeks but made it home for dinner most nights, ate with my family, helped with homework, attended parent-teacher conferences, paid for private high school when the kids tested in, funded college without loans, gave them stability my father never had, security built one documented decision at a time. Brett played soccer. I watched every game I could, standing on the sideline in my work boots, because I came straight from job sites. Parents in their khakis and polo shirts, me in Carhartt pants with drywall dust on my shoulders, Brett scoring goals, looking toward the crowd, his eyes sliding past me to find the other parents first. At the end of season banquet when Brett was 14, another father asked what I did. "He's in construction," Brett said before I could answer. Turned the conversation to college plans immediately. Melissa joined junior league at the country club when she married Derek. Invited Barbara and me to family day. I wore my good jeans and a button-down shirt, cleaned my work boots. Melissa introduced us to her friends in their tennis whites and summer dresses. "This is my dad," she said. "Not what he does, not where he works, just who I was in relation to her." Barbara touched my hand under the table at lunch, squeezed once, understood. The kids got everything they needed and most of what they wanted. What they didn't get was pride in how it was earned. My hands built their comfortable life. They preferred not to think about the hands. Ray Torres showed up at a job site 30 years ago looking for work. Mexican-American guy, Marine Corps tattoo on his left forearm, showing up at 6 in the morning with his own tools and a lunch pail. I needed laborers for a commercial renovation downtown. "You know framing?" I asked. "I can learn anything you show me once." He wasn't exaggerating. Showed him how to read plans, square a wall, set floor joists. He asked questions that proved he understood the why behind the how. Stayed late without being asked. Kept his work area organized like a military footlocker. I promoted him to crew chief after 3 years. Foreman at 5. Paid for his construction management certification at Milwaukee Area Technical College, 2 years of night classes while he worked days. He graduated top of his class at 43. "I owe you for this," he said, showing me the certificate. "You earned it. I just paid the bill." Ray kept logs, composition notebooks, the kind kids use in school. Black and white marbled covers, college-ruled pages. Every day, every job, every decision. Weather conditions, crew assignments, materials delivered, problems encountered, solutions implemented. I didn't ask him to do it. He just did. Marine habit. Ray tapped his notebook. Drill instructor in Fallujah said if you didn't document it, it didn't happen. Kept me alive there, keeps projects running here. I attended his daughter Maria's quinceañera. Watched Ray dance with her, both of them in formal clothes I'd never seen before, his face showing pride that needed no translation. Rosa, his wife, hugged me when I left. "You gave him a life," she said in careful English. "He earned it," I said. Ray's son Miguel joined the company as a project manager. Ray's got 3 decades of logs stored in Footlockers at his house, organized by year. Sometimes we pull old ones to settle questions about past projects, verify decisions, check solutions that worked. The notebooks stack up like a parallel archive to my ledgers, two men documenting the same work from different angles. Barbara got sick 4 years ago, pancreatic cancer, diagnosis to death in 7 months. I took leave from the business, stayed home, handled medications and appointments, and the gradual diminishment of the woman I'd built everything beside. Ray ran operations. The crew sent flowers. Brett visited twice. Melissa came for Thanksgiving, left early to meet friends. Barbara died on a Tuesday in February. Hospice nurse present. Me holding her hand, her last words about making sure I ate regular meals and didn't let the house fall apart. "The business will be fine," she whispered. "Ray will keep it running. The kids will figure themselves out. You just take care of you." I buried her the following Saturday. Ray and the entire crew attended. Brett gave a eulogy that made her sound like a stranger, references to her kindness and grace without mentioning she kept our books for 23 years. Melissa cried without smudging her mascara, tissue positioned for maximum effect. The charity auction 2 years after Barbara's death smelled like hotel flowers and wine. I sat alone at a table I'd shared with Barbara for 15 years, raising my paddle for a Door County weekend out of habit. Vanessa sat at my table, blonde hair, expensive dress, smile that suggested she found me interesting when everything about the setting said I didn't belong. "You look like you'd rather be anywhere else," she said. "Is it that obvious?" "Only to someone who feels the same way." She touched my hand. "I'm Vanessa, real estate agent, here because my broker bought a table. You, Larry, here because my wife used to make me come. She died 2 years ago." Warmth entered her eyes. Real sympathy or performance, I couldn't tell. Didn't try. We dated 6 months. Married a year after meeting. I was 62, she was 46. People noticed the age gap. I noticed how she filled the silence in the house, made meals I didn't have to microwave, asked about my day and seemed to listen. I added her as a signatory on our joint checking account. Practical convenience for household expenses. She started buying new clothes, expensive packages delivered to a P.O. box I didn't question. Suggested I modernize business operations, let her handle finances so I could focus on what I did best. "You're a builder," she said, "not a bookkeeper." "I am both. Always have been." The suggestion landed wrong, but I was too lonely to examine why. My garage workshop holds my real peace. 40 vintage pocket watches from the 20s through the 50s, displayed in glass cases I built myself. Each one bought broken, restored through months of work. Tiny screws and springs, mechanisms needing magnification to see, precision measured in fractions of millimeters. The work required complete focus, left no room for anything else. I keep a repair log for every watch, date acquired, condition assessment, parts needed, restoration steps, completion date. The 1947 Elgin took 4 months. Movement seized, mainspring broken, balance wheel bent. I documented every session, photographed each stage, recorded what worked and what didn't. "Good mechanisms don't need excuses," I told Ray once, showing him a 1938 Hamilton running after 8 months of Sunday afternoons. "They just work, like good workers," he said, "like good systems. Document everything, fix what's broken, maintain what works." I never wear the watches. They sit in their cases, movements visible through displaybacks, ticking away their earned rest. 40 timepieces, 40 logbooks, 40 examples of patience and precision restoring what others abandoned. 6 months after I married Vanessa, Brett arrived for dinner with Courtney and 3 bottles of wine. Wine from his collection, bottles he described with vocabulary he'd memorized from magazines. Courtney talked about her corporate law practice. Brett discussed strategic capital allocation. Vanessa nodded along, asked intelligent questions. I grilled steaks and listened to my son explain business concepts I'd practiced for 40 years using different words. "It's about maximizing return on invested capital," Brett said. "Optimizing resource allocation, making sure jobs make money," I said. "Well, that's simplifying it." Vanessa touched my arm. Brett's just trying to help you understand modern business practices. 2 months later, Melissa invited us to the country club. Derek had paid the initiation fee, $50,000 for membership. We sat at their table overlooking the golf course. Melissa's friends stopped by, women in expensive casual wear that cost more than my work truck payment. These are my parents, Melissa said. Not my dad, the contractor. Not the man who built a business that paid for this membership. Just parents. Neutral category requiring no explanation. The foundation was all there. 40 years of documentation, 30 years of partnership with Ray, children raised in comfort who saw only obligation where they should have seen sacrifice. A second wife I trusted because I was lonely, and she performed companionship I needed. Paper doesn't lie. People do. My father knew. Barbara knew. I was still learning. The marriage I thought would fill the silence lasted exactly 18 months before it started to crack. Vanessa started small. Suggestions over morning coffee at the kitchen table, sunlight catching her highlighted hair as she scrolled through her phone. You should let me handle the household accounts, she said 3 months after we married. Free up your time for the business. I added her as a signatory on our joint checking. Household expenses, groceries, utilities. Made sense for a married couple. She smiled and kissed my cheek. This is so much better. You focus on what you're good at, I'll handle the details. The packages started arriving 6 weeks later. I was home when the UPS truck pulled up. The driver handed Vanessa a box, scanned 3 more from the back. Big shopping day, I said. She laughed. Just some things I needed. You know how it is. I didn't, but I nodded. Barbara had bought what we needed when we needed it. This felt different. The packages kept coming. 2 a week, then 4. Vanessa mentioned getting them sent to a P.O. box downtown because our porch wasn't secure. Made sense. The neighborhood had package thieves. I checked our joint account one evening. I scrolled through the transactions. Groceries, utilities, gas. The shopping money came from somewhere else. Her real estate commissions, maybe. Her business. I checked the iPad one evening to review project photos. The Pinterest app was still open from her last session. 40,000 pins organized into boards with names like Dream Closet and Luxury Travel and Designer Paradise. Photos of mansions, yachts, jewelry that cost more than my first truck. She walked in while I was looking. Just planning, she said. Every woman does it. 40,000 pins is a lot of planning. You keep all those job logs. I plan my future. Same thing, different method. It wasn't the same thing. My documentation recorded what happened. Her boards mapped what she wanted. Big difference. Brett invited us to dinner at his downtown condo. Wine tasting, he said. Bring an appetite. Courtney answered the door in designer casual, led us to their living room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Brett stood beside a table covered in wine bottles, corkscrew in hand like a sommelier. My phone buzzed during Brett's explanation of barrel aging. Work email from Ray about a materials delivery question. I typed a response. This is a 2015 Chateauneuf du Pape, Brett said, pouring dark red into crystal glasses. Robert Parker gave it 94 points. Noticed the tertiary notes of leather and tobacco. I sipped. Tasted like red wine. Complexity requires a developed palate, Brett said. Not everyone has the background. Vanessa nodded along. Tell us about the cellar, Brett. Larry should see what you built. He led us downstairs to a climate-controlled room. 300 bottles in custom racks. Temperature gauge showing exactly 55 degrees. Most bottles still had price tags. 35,000 in inventory, Brett said. Each bottle selected for investment potential and drinking quality. When do you drink them? I asked. When they reach optimal maturity. Wine is an investment that appreciates. Like real estate, Vanessa said. Exactly. Brett poured another glass upstairs. It's about understanding value beyond immediate consumption. I thought about the watches in my garage. Bought broken, restored to function, never worn. But I didn't call them investments. They were just something I did with my hands. Brett glanced over. Dad, we're having a tasting. Can't that wait? Just answering Ray. See, this is what I mean. No separation between work and life. You need better boundaries. I put the phone away. Listened to Brett explain wine I couldn't taste the difference in, watched Vanessa ask questions that made him expand his explanations, felt like I was supposed to be impressed by expensive bottles he never opened. 2 days later, I got an email from Brett. Subject line, quick question about commercial bidding. The message asked about pricing strategy for a strip mall renovation, how to account for material cost fluctuation, and subcontractor availability. Specific questions requiring real answers. I spent 20 minutes writing a detailed response, breaking down cost buffer percentages, timing considerations, supplier relationship management, everything I'd learned over 40 years. His reply came in 3 words. Got it, thanks. That afternoon I called Ray about a different project. He mentioned running into one of Brett's colleagues at a construction expo. Guy asked if I knew your son. Said Brett's firm just landed a retail development analysis contract. Brett doesn't work in construction. This guy said Brett presented some impressive insights about commercial project cost management. Made it sound like Brett came up with it himself. I pulled up my sent emails. Found the message I'd sent Brett. Reread my explanations about material buffers and supplier relationships. My phone rang that evening while I was in the garage working on a 1952 Hamilton. Brett's name on the screen. I answered. Hey Dad, quick question about phased construction cash flow. I explained it. Watched my hands steady a balance wheel while I talked about payment schedules and progress billing. Great, that helps. Talk soon. He hung up. I set down my tools and pulled up my laptop, searched Brett's firm name plus his name. Found a case study presentation he'd given 6 months ago about construction project risk management. I read it twice. My words, my concepts, slightly reworded but structurally identical to advice I'd given him over email and phone calls. He'd packaged it as proprietary analysis. 3 days later, I stopped by the headquarters early to grab blueprints I'd forgotten. Brett was on a phone call in the parking lot, windows down on his Audi. The old man doesn't understand modern capital allocation, he said. Still thinking like it's 1985. Someone with actual credentials needs to modernize operations before he runs it into the ground. I stood beside my truck, watched him gesture while he talked, wireframe glasses catching morning sun. Yeah, I simplify things for him. Use basic language so he follows along. It's like explaining business to a child who only knows hammers. He ended the call, saw me standing there. His face went blank for 3 seconds, then recovered. Morning, Dad, didn't see you. Heard enough. He drove away. I stood beside my truck until his Audi disappeared around the corner. Then I went to work. The following month, Melissa invited us back to the country club for a fundraiser dinner. Vanessa wore a new dress I'd never seen before. We sat at Melissa's table overlooking the golf course, surrounded by her friends in tennis whites and designer casual. Melissa introduced everyone. This is my father Larry and his wife Vanessa. Not what I did, not where I worked, just relationship categories. The meal was chicken I could have made better at home for 1/10 of the cost. Melissa talked about the Junior League fundraiser, her children's private school, Derek's latest medical conference in Hawaii. I excused myself to the restroom, past the ladies' lounge where voices carried through the open door. The private school tuition is killing us, Melissa said. But we can't pull them out. What would people think? Can't your father help? Another woman asked. He could, but he won't. Sits on $6 million in business equity while I'm drowning in debt. He's 63 and healthy. Could be decades. Meanwhile, I'm carrying $47,000 in credit card debt. I walked back to the table, finished my chicken, made small talk, drove home with Vanessa chattering about how lovely the club was, how we should join. Melissa seems stressed, I said. She's managing a lot. 2 kids, country club obligations, maintaining the right social connections. It's expensive. Derek's an orthopedic surgeon, which doesn't go as far as people think. Not in their circle. I thought about Melissa calling her inheritance rightfully hers. Money I was withholding by continuing to breathe. My grandchildren visited twice that year. Brief visits, Melissa dropping them off while she ran errands. Braden was 8, Connor was 5. They sat in my living room, thumbs moving across tablet screens, barely looking up when I asked about school. "Grandpa, can we go now?" Braden asked after 20 minutes. I lived 20 minutes away. Saw them 4 times a year if lucky. Melissa's scrapbooks filled a dedicated room in her house. I'd seen it once when picking up the boys. Floor-to-ceiling shelves holding albums organized by year, each one labeled in her perfect handwriting. Daddy's Girl 2008 next to Family Vacation 2012 next to Precious Memories 2015. Albums about a relationship that existed in photos but not phone calls. She'd made one about our fishing trip 15 years ago, elaborately decorated pages with preserved leaves and handwritten captions. We hadn't been fishing together since. 6 months before the conservatorship petition, a Facebook notification appeared on my phone. Vanessa had tagged someone in a photo. I clicked without thinking. Dr. Philip Strand, tagged in a throwback college photo, both of them young and laughing at some party in the 90s. I scrolled through his profile. Psychiatrist in private practice. Posts about mental health awareness and professional conferences. Who's Philip Strand? I asked Vanessa. Old college boyfriend. We reconnected on Facebook. Just catching up. Psychiatrist. Yes, very successful. Has his own practice. I closed my phone. Old friends reconnecting on social media. Normal. Their message exchanges showed up later when Elizabeth's digital forensic specialist recovered deleted text. Miss you, like college days, and been thinking about us a lot, mixed with, I might need professional help with a situation, and I can make this happen for you, but I didn't know that yet. I saw a college friend tagged in a photo, nothing more. Vanessa mentioned coffee with Philip 2 weeks later, suggested I might benefit from a checkup, just routine evaluation to make sure everything was good. I'm 63, not 90, I said. I know, but Philip mentioned how important preventive mental health care is. For men, your age with business stress. I'm not stressed. Of course not. She kissed my forehead. Just something to consider. I noticed them texting more. Vanessa, Brett, Melissa. Group conversations that stopped when I walked into rooms. Calls taken in other parts of the house. Family group chat, Vanessa explained. We're planning something special. She smiled. You'll see. My birthday was 7 months away. I didn't know about the storage unit yet. Elizabeth's investigator would find it later, 10 by 20 space-packed floor-to-ceiling with unopened purchases. Designer labels, most items still in original packaging with tags attached. $180,000 in unopened purchases. But I didn't know that yet. I saw packages arriving, Pinterest boards growing, suggestions about business operations, pieces that didn't connect into pattern. I stood in my garage one Saturday working on a 1938 Hamilton while Vanessa hosted book club in the living room. Voices carried through the open door. Larry's so lucky to have you managing things, someone said. He needs the help, getting older, starting to forget things, repeat himself. I'm keeping an eye on it. I set down my tools, walked to the garage door. The women saw me, and conversation shifted to recipes. The words landed wrong. Not concern, strategy. I filed it away with the other signs I'd been dismissing. Paper doesn't lie, people do. Yeah, my father was right. I just wasn't writing down the right things yet. Christmas dinner started with forced cheer. The kind that appears in photos but dies before dessert. Brett arrived first, carrying 3 bottles of wine like trophies. Courtney behind him in expensive casual wear that cost more than my monthly truck payment. Melissa and Derek came next with the kids, Braden and Connor in matching sweaters that looked stiff and uncomfortable. Vanessa played hostess, directing everyone to the dining room where she'd set Barbara's good china, folded napkins in silver rings, candles at precise intervals. Nothing like the dinners Barbara and I used to have, where conversation mattered more than presentation. Brett uncorked the first bottle. 96 points from Wine Spectator, he said, pouring. You'll appreciate the complexity, Dad. I took the glass he poured. Tasted like red wine. The meal started safe. Weather, traffic, Packers' chances in playoffs. Derek talked about a surgical conference in Phoenix. Melissa mentioned the kids' winter break activities. Normal family dinner conversation that didn't require anyone to say anything real. Brett set down his wine glass. Dad, I've been meaning to ask about your expansion plans for next quarter. Have you considered strategic capital allocation versus traditional growth models? I cut my roast beef. The knife scraped against Barbara's china. We're taking on 2 new commercial projects. Hired 3 more crew. Right, but that's tactical execution, not strategic planning. I'm talking about leveraging existing assets to maximize return on invested capital, making sure the jobs make money and the crew stays employed. Courtney smiled. Brett's just trying to help you understand modern business frameworks. I've run the business 40 years. Framework seems to work. Brett exchanged a look with Vanessa. Quick. Practiced. Melissa set down her fork. We're just worried about you, Daddy. Managing everything yourself at your age. Derek and I were talking about how expensive private school is. Braden's tuition alone is $30,000 a year. Some people sit on fortunes while family struggles. You need money for tuition? I asked. That's not the point. The point is, you're working too hard for someone your age. You should be enjoying retirement, not dealing with construction stress. Vanessa touched my hand. I've noticed you seem confused lately, honey. Remember last month when you called Braden by the wrong name? I looked at my grandson, 8 years old, watching his tablet while adults talked around him. I called him kiddo, same thing I called Connor. Didn't use either name. You seemed disoriented though, kept asking what year it was. I asked if they were excited for 2024, making conversation about the new year. Brett leaned forward. See, this is what we mean. You're getting defensive about simple observations. Melissa and I have both noticed you repeating yourself, talking about old projects like they're current. Which projects? Just general confusion. Living in the past instead of the present. I set down my knife, looked at each of them. Vanessa's concerned expression, Brett's patient condescension, Melissa's tearful eyes that hadn't produced actual tears yet. March 15th of this year, I calculated load-bearing requirements for the Riverside project. Engineer confirmed my numbers were more precise than his original specs. April 3rd, I caught a billing error that saved $42,000. May 20th, I redesigned drainage systems the city inspector called exceptional. Those aren't old projects. Those are this year. Silence around the table. Braden's tablet made quiet game sounds. Well, Courtney said, no one's questioning your past competence. What are you questioning? Brett reached for the wine. Let's just enjoy dinner. The meal continued with careful small talk. Weather again, holiday plans, anything but the topic they'd clearly rehearsed. I watched them exchange glances when they thought I wasn't looking. Quick eye contact, small nods, practice signals. Derek took the kids to the living room after dessert. The Packers game was on, sound low. Courtney joined them, claiming she needed to check work emails. That left Vanessa, Brett, and Melissa clearing dishes while I excused myself to the garage. The 1947 Elgin sat on my workbench where I'd left it that morning. Movement seized, mainspring broken, 3 months of Sunday work still ahead. I picked up my loop and tweezers, found the familiar focus of tiny mechanisms and precise movements. The garage window looked into the kitchen. I glanced up while adjusting the balance wheel. They were gathered around the kitchen table. Vanessa pulled out the laptop. Silver MacBook, same one she used for real estate work. The screen showed a document, Arial font, single-spaced text, animated discussion, intense coordination. I set down my tools, watched through the window. Brett gestured broadly. Melissa nodded, said something that made them all smile. Vanessa turned the laptop, showed them something on the screen. They studied it together like engineers reviewing blueprints. The meeting lasted 40 minutes. I stood at my workbench, hands still, my wife and children planning something in my own kitchen. When they finally dispersed, Derek and the kids were already loading into their car. Brett and Courtney left right after. Vanessa came to the garage doorway, cleaning up. "You coming in?" "In a minute." She went back inside. I heard the dishwasher start, the Christmas tree lights click off, her footsteps upstairs to bed. I stayed in the garage until midnight, didn't touch the watch again, just stood at the window looking at the empty kitchen table where my family had gathered without me. The next morning I remembered the cameras. I'd installed them 6 months ago, back when Vanessa started acting strange. Job site theft was the excuse I gave her. Motion-activated cloud storage, 60-day retention, cameras in every room, including the kitchen. I opened the app on my phone, found the previous night's recordings. The footage was clear. HD video, surprisingly good audio. Timestamp showed 8:47 p.m., right after I'd gone to the garage. Vanessa pulled out the laptop, turned it so Brett and Melissa could see the screen. Phil confirmed he can do the evaluation next week. "And the diagnosis?" Brett asked. "He says he can make it stick. 45 minutes. Standard assessment, documentation of decline." Phil. The name meant nothing to me then. I made a note to find out who Phil was. Melissa leaned closer to the screen. "What about the timeline? When do we file?" "Phil says he can schedule it for February, before Dad suspects anything. The documentation will be recent enough to be credible, but not so recent it looks rushed." Brett tapped the laptop. "Once we get conservatorship, I'll restructure operations immediately. Dad won't know what hit him. Old man still thinks a handshake matters more than strategic planning." "I've already talked to the bank about access," Vanessa said. "Joint signatory status means I can move funds the day the petition's approved." Melissa twisted her hands. "And my distribution. 6 months maximum. Brett manages the business. You get your share. Everyone's happy. Dad will be in a nice facility with activities and people his own age." "What if he fights it?" Melissa asked. Vanessa laughed. "He won't. Larry never fights back. He just takes it and moves on. Been doing it his whole life." Brett nodded. "Besides, we have Phil's medical opinion, our testimony about his confusion, documented concerns from family." "What's he got?" "Construction logs. The judge will see an old man refusing to accept reality." "I can cry on command if needed for testimony," Melissa said. "Been practicing." The whole worried daughter thing. They spent the next 30 minutes discussing asset division, Brett's restructuring plans, Vanessa's account access, Melissa's immediate needs. They talked about my life like a project to complete, my business like an inheritance already theirs. The recording ended at 9:27 p.m. I sat in the garage workshop, phone still in my hand. 40 minutes of detailed planning, every word documented, time-stamped, saved to cloud storage they didn't know existed. I picked up the 1947 Elgin, movement still seized, mainspring still broken. The case was intact. Someone patient could fix it. My phone buzzed. Text from Ray asking about material delivery for Monday's job. I typed back, "Need to talk. Can you come by the office tomorrow? Bring the logs." His response came immediately. "All of them? Every single one." I set down the broken watch, looked at the security camera footage still paused on my phone screen. My wife and children frozen mid-conspiracy, confident smiles visible even in the timestamp frame. Paper doesn't lie, people do. The petition arrived by certified mail 8 days after Christmas. Legal-sized envelope. Return address from Whitmore and Associates Family Law. I signed for it on the porch while the mail carrier waited, clipboard balanced against her hip. I opened it at my kitchen table. 8 pages claiming I suffered from advanced dementia and could no longer manage my own affairs. Dr. Philip Strand's psychiatric evaluation, attached as Exhibit A. Brett Kowalczyk, listed as proposed conservator with immediate authority over all financial and personal decisions. I read it twice. The pages made dry sounds against the kitchen table. Coffee dripped into the pot while I read it again, counting the lies. Dr. Strand dated the evaluation last week. 45-minute consultation, according to the timestamp. Standard assessment protocol, the document said. Patient demonstrates significant cognitive decline with impaired executive function, memory deficits, and inability to manage complex business operations. Recommended immediate intervention for patient safety and asset protection. No cognitive testing mentioned. No review of business records. No interviews with colleagues or employees. Just 45 minutes in an office and a diagnosis that would strip 40 years of work from my control. The language was boilerplate. I'd read enough contracts to recognize fill-in-the-blank phrasing. Advanced dementia where my name should go. Inability to manage affairs where specifics should be. Family reports of confusion without listing what family or what confusion. 3 bullet points under observed symptoms. Memory lapses, confusion about dates, repetitive questioning, each one checked, but none explained. No examples of when these happened, no documentation of what I actually said or did, just boxes marked yes. I called Ray from my truck in the headquarters parking lot. I'd driven there on autopilot, needing the familiar space to think. Can you come to the office? Need to show you something. He arrived 30 minutes later, work truck still running in the parking lot. I handed him the petition without explanation. He read standing at the conference table. Halfway through the first page, his jaw moved. By page 3, the margins had deep creases from his grip. "This is garbage," he said. I pulled up the security footage on my laptop. The Christmas dinner meeting, timestamp visible. Sound clear enough to catch every word. Ray watched without speaking. His face went hard when Vanessa said Phil confirmed he can do the evaluation next week. Harder when Brett talked about restructuring operations. By the time Melissa practiced crying on command, his knuckles were white against the table edge. 30 years, he said when the video ended. What? 30 years of logs. Every decision you made on every job site. I kept them all. He left without another word. Returned 40 minutes later with 3 military footlockers from his truck bed. Set them on the conference room floor with solid thuds that rattled the window glass. Ray's work boots scraped the conference room floor as he set down the first footlocker, then the second. The third hit hardest, rattling the window glass. He opened the first one. Composition notebooks, black and white marbled covers, organized by year, each spine labeled in Ray's block handwriting. 1993, 1995, 1996, 1998, 1999, 2001. Marine habit, he said. Document everything. If you didn't write it down, it didn't happen. He pulled out a recent notebook, flipped to March 15th. Riverside project load calculations. You caught the engineer's error before we poured foundation. Your numbers beat his originals. He confirmed it in writing. He turned pages. April 3rd. Billing reconciliation. You noticed a $42,000 discrepancy in material costs. Vendor had double charged for concrete delivery. You caught it reviewing invoices at 5 in the morning. More pages. May 20th. Drainage redesign for the Monroe Street build. City inspector came out, looked at your modifications, called them exceptional. Said most contractors would have followed the original plans and dealt with water problems later. You saw the issue before ground broke. Ray set down the notebook, pulled out another from 15 years ago. Read entries showing the same analytical thinking, same problem solving, same precision. This is not a man in cognitive decline, he said. I spent an hour that evening researching elder law attorneys. Found Elizabeth Chen's website, fourth result down. Conservatorship fraud specialist, former prosecutor. Case results showing successful defenses against family exploitation schemes. Her office was downtown, 14th floor with lake views. Her 14th floor office had lake views and silence. No traffic sounds reached this high, just the tick of the wall clock between her questions. I showed her the petition. She looked at the screen, set down her pen. Dr. Philip Strand, she said. I've seen his name before. 3 years ago, different case. The judge impeached his testimony. She flipped to the evaluation. 45 minutes. No cognitive testing. No business records review. No colleague interviews. This wouldn't pass basic professional standards for a dementia diagnosis. Can we fight it? Wisconsin conservatorship law requires clear and convincing evidence of incompetence. They have one questionable evaluation and family testimony. What do you have? I told her about the security footage, the logs, 40 years of ledgers, bank records showing consistent financial management. She smiled for the first time. We're going to need subpoenas. Your son's work emails, your wife's phone records, Dr. Strand's patient files, all your bank records for the past decade. Brett's emails are company property, I said. Automatic backups he can't delete. Perfect. She made more notes. I'll also need a digital forensics specialist. People think deleted means gone. It doesn't. The forensics work took 2 weeks. The specialist worked from an encrypted laptop at a coffee shop corner table. Mid-30s, wore a university hoodie, spoke in password strings and metadata timestamps. She recovered text messages Vanessa had deleted. Miss you, like college days. That was from 6 months before the evaluation. I can make this happen for you. That was Strand replying 3 days before our meeting. Before he suspects anything. Vanessa again. The message chain between Vanessa, Brett, and Melissa showed calculated planning, asset division discussions, testimony rehearsal, strategic timing coordinated down to specific dates. Brett, once we get conservatorship, I restructure immediately. Melissa, and my distribution? Brett, 6 months maximum. Brett's work emails told their own story. Messages to his supervisor, forwarding my market analysis as his own insights. Requests for my advice on commercial bidding while building the incompetence case with attorneys. The timestamps showed both conversations happening the same week. The Facebook archive showed their reconnection pattern. College photos tagged 6 months before the evaluation. Coffee meeting check-ins downtown. Casual comments suggesting ongoing contact they'd both later deny. Elizabeth spread the evidence across her conference table one evening. Security footage transcripts, recovered text messages, work email chains, bank records showing 40 years of precise financial management without a single unusual transaction. Judge Morales is assigned to your case, she said. She's been on the bench 20 years. She's skeptical of family-initiated conservatorship petitions. Seen too many exploitation schemes. What's our strategy? Elizabeth tapped the psychiatric evaluation. We present your ledgers and logs proving consistent competence. Security footage proving premeditated conspiracy. Digital evidence proving coordination between your wife and the psychiatrist. Bank records proving financial acumen. Expert testimony on fraudulent evaluation methods. She tapped the psychiatric evaluation again, and we let them testify first. Let them commit to their story before we show them the proof. Ray and I spent evenings matching log entries to project records. Each notebook entry matched invoices, permits, inspection reports. March 15th, structural calculations confirmed by engineer documentation. April 3rd, billing error proven by vendor correction letters. May 20th, drainage redesign supported by city inspector reports. The pattern held for 30 years. every decision documented, every judgment call recorded, every problem solved and written down in Ray's block handwriting. "Your father was right," Ray said one night. "Footlockers open around us like an arsenal." Paper doesn't lie. I looked at the evidence spread across my office. 40 years of blue binders on headquarters shelves. 30 years of composition notebooks in military footlockers. Digital forensics reports. Bank statements. Security footage files. "They thought I kept no records," I said. "They thought wrong." Judge Morales's reputation preceded the hearing. Elizabeth explained it over coffee the morning we finalized our evidence presentation. She's seen every conservatorship scheme there is. The adult children who can't wait for inheritance. The new spouses after quick assets. The corrupt evaluators who'll diagnose anyone for a fee. She doesn't suffer fraud. Anne Strand, she'll remember him. Judges don't forget witnesses they had to impeach. I signed the last affidavit from the bank manager confirming my financial competence. Ray coordinated with courthouse security that morning, getting the footlockers pre-cleared before the hearing to avoid delays. Elizabeth organized exhibit binders with tabs marking each piece of evidence. The conspiracy had 6 weeks of planning captured in deleted messages they thought were gone. I had 40 years of documentation they never knew existed. Paper doesn't lie. People do. My father knew. Barbara knew. I was done learning. Brett's lawyer positioned himself at the petitioner's table. Dark suit, leather portfolio, the confident posture of someone who believed the outcome was predetermined. "Your Honor, the evidence will show that Lawrence Kowalczyk suffers from advanced dementia requiring immediate conservatorship for his own protection and the protection of his substantial business assets." He called Dr. Strand to the stand. The psychiatrist wore a pressed suit and carried a thin file folder, settled into the witness chair without hesitation, adjusted the microphone with practiced ease. His testimony flowed smooth. 45-minute evaluation. Standard assessment protocol. Significant cognitive decline observed. Memory deficits. Confusion about dates. Impaired executive function. Recommended immediate intervention. Elizabeth Chen rose from our table. Wire-frame glasses caught the fluorescent light. "Dr. Strand, you testified to a 45-minute evaluation. Did you conduct the Montreal Cognitive Assessment? The clinical interview provided sufficient data for diagnosis." "That's not what I asked. Did you administer the Montreal Cognitive Assessment, the mini mental state examination, any standardized testing protocol?" "No." "Did you review any of Mr. Kowalczyk's business records?" "That wasn't necessary given the family reports." "Did you speak with any colleagues who work with him daily?" "No." "Did you review any documentation of his day-to-day decision-making?" The family provided context. Elizabeth walked to our table, picked up a folder. "Dr. Strand, did you disclose your prior relationship with Mrs. Kowalczyk during your evaluation?" His shoulders tensed. Color drained from his cheeks. "We knew each other in college." "That's not relevant to the clinical assessment." She opened the folder, pulled out printed photos, handed copies to the bailiff for distribution. "These are Facebook photos from your college years together, and these are from a reunion 5 years ago where you're tagged together, and this is from a coffee shop 6 months before the evaluation you conducted." The courtroom projection system lit up. Photos filled the screen. Young Vanessa and Philip at a party. Older versions at a conference. Recent image at a downtown cafe. Elizabeth tapped her tablet. Text messages appeared on the projection screen. Recovered messages from deleted conversations. "Kate's, miss you like college days. I can make this happen for you. Before he suspects anything." The timestamp showed 3 days before the evaluation. "These are recovered text messages between you and Mrs. Kowalczyk discussing the evaluation before it occurred. Does this seem consistent with professional psychiatric practice?" Dr. Strand's professional mask cracked. That's out of context." Judge Morales leaned forward, looked at Strand over her reading glasses. Dr. Strand, you testified in the Hendrickson conservatorship case 3 years ago. I impeached your testimony then for similar ethical violations. I see the pattern hasn't changed. Her jaw tightened. The vein at her temple pulsed. Melissa approached the witness stand next. Conservative dress chosen for sympathy, tissue already positioned in her hand. Ms. Tanner, please describe your concerns about your father's mental state. She dabbed her eyes. He's so confused lately. At Christmas, he called Braden by the wrong name. Asked Connor if he was excited for school, but Connor's only 5, he's not in school yet. Dad kept asking what year it was, seemed lost in his own house. Her voice broke on cue. He needs help, professional care. We're just trying to protect him. Elizabeth stood. Ms. Tanner, you testified your father called your sons by the wrong names at Christmas. What names did he use? Melissa hesitated. He mixed them up, called them the wrong things. Specifically, what did he call them? I don't remember the exact words, but it was clear he was confused about who they were. Elizabeth tapped her tablet. The projection screen changed. Security footage from Christmas dinner. Timestamp visible, audio clear. My voice on screen. Want to help Grandpa set the table, kiddo? Braden moving chairs. Connor following. My voice again. That's great, kiddo. Your brother can get the other side. The footage continued. Clear responses to their questions. Specific details about their interests. No confusion. No disorientation. No wrong names. Just 2 boys both called kiddo, the same generic endearment. Elizabeth let the silence hold for 3 seconds. Your father didn't call anyone by the wrong name, did he, Mrs. Tanner? He simply used a common term of endearment for both children. Melissa's prepared tears became genuine, real distress replacing performance. Elizabeth tapped her tablet again. A second clip loaded. Kitchen conspiracy meeting. Audio played through courtroom speakers. Vanessa's voice. Phil confirmed he can do the evaluation next week. Brett's voice and the diagnosis. Vanessa's voice. He says he can make it stick. 45 minutes. Standard assessment. Documentation of decline. Brett's voice. Once we get conservatorship, I'll restructure operations immediately. The old man won't know what hit him. Melissa's voice. And my distribution. Brett's voice. 6 months maximum. We divide assets. Everyone's happy. Melissa's voice. I can cry on command if needed for testimony. Been practicing. The courtroom went silent except for the audio playback. Asset division discussions. Company restructuring plans. Rehearsed performances. All captured with dates and timestamps proving premeditation. Derek sat rigid in the gallery, staring at his wife. His shock looked genuine. Brett took the stand. Wireframe glasses, tailored suit, the confident bearing of someone who believed credentials mattered more than competence. My father can't understand basic fiscal restructuring concepts. He confuses quarterly reports with annual statements. Can't calculate cash flow projections. He lacks the business judgment for modern operations. Elizabeth stood. Mr. Kowalczyk, you work at Whitmore and Associates, correct? Yes. In what capacity? Portfolio analyst. She produced a stack of emails, handed copies to the judge. These are work emails where you sought your father's advice on commercial bidding strategies while simultaneously building this incompetence case. Can you explain that contradiction? Brett shifted in the witness chair. His face flushed. Different context. These emails show you forwarding your father's market analysis to your supervisor as your own insights. That's plagiarism of work from a man you claim is mentally incompetent. His confident tone faltered. I was simplifying his concepts into modern frameworks by copying them word for word and claiming credit. Elizabeth didn't wait for an answer. No further questions. Brett's face went white. Courtney moved slightly away from him in the gallery, creating visible space. Ray Torres approached the stand. The bailiff was already in position beside the evidence table where the 3 Footlockers sat. Ray opened the first one. Composition notebooks organized chronologically. black and white marbled covers worn at the edges, each spine labeled in block handwriting. His handwriting filled every line, no margins wasted. I've kept daily logs for 30 years. Every decision Mr. Kowalczyk made, documented. He opened a recent notebook, March 15th, Riverside Project Load Calculations. Mr. Kowalczyk calculated load-bearing requirements more precise than the engineer's original specifications. The engineer confirmed it in writing. Ray produced the engineer's letter, handed it to the bailiff. April 3rd, billing reconciliation. Mr. Kowalczyk caught a $42,000 discrepancy in material costs. The vendor had double charged for concrete delivery. Here's the bank reconciliation proving the correction. He set down another document, May 20th, drainage redesign for the Monroe Street build. Mr. Kowalczyk redesigned the system before ground broke. The city inspector called his work exceptional. Here's the inspection report. Ray met everyone's eyes directly as he spoke, provided corroborating evidence methodically. I've documented every decision Larry Kowalczyk made for 30 years. This is not a man in cognitive decline. Elizabeth presented my ledgers, 40 years of blue binders stacked on the defense table. The bank manager testified next. Described consistent financial management, no unusual transactions, precision matching handwritten records to digital statements for 4 decades. Construction industry colleagues provided affidavits, recent complex projects, continued expertise. A presentation I'd given at the trade association 6 weeks before the petition was filed. The gallery went silent. Not a cough, not a shuffle. Melissa's crying had become genuine, real distress replacing performance. Vanessa sat frozen, her Botox expression showing cracks. Brett stared at the evidence table like it contained his execution warrant. Judge Morales reviewed the security footage transcript in silence, looked at the recovered text messages, examined Ray's logs and my ledgers spread across the defense table. Her jaw tightened, the vein at her temple pulsed. She set down her reading glasses. I'm dismissing this petition with prejudice. The evidence of Mr. Kowalczyk's competence is overwhelming. The evidence of conspiracy to commit fraud is deeply troubling. She looked at the court reporter. I'm referring this matter to the Milwaukee County District Attorney's Office for criminal investigation. Fraud, perjury, conspiracy to commit elder financial exploitation. Her gavel hit the bench once. Final. I sat at the defense table, hands folded, watched my family's carefully constructed lies collapse under the weight of documentation they never knew existed. My father was right about one thing. Paper doesn't lie. Judge Morales set down her pen, looked at the court reporter. The petition is dismissed with prejudice. The evidence of Mr. Kowalczyk's competence is overwhelming. She set down the security footage transcript. Her jaw tightened. The vein at her temple pulsed. I'm referring this matter to the Milwaukee County District Attorney's Office for criminal investigation. Fraud, perjury, conspiracy to commit elder financial exploitation. Wisconsin Statute 94295. Her gavel hit the bench once. The sound echoed off the courtroom walls. This court will not tolerate weaponization of conservatorship law for personal enrichment. The conspirators in this case face felony charges carrying substantial prison time and mandatory restitution. Vanessa's hands gripped the table edge. Her knuckles went white. Foundation couldn't hide the flush creeping up her neck. Brett stared at the evidence table like it contained his execution warrant. Melissa's genuine crying replaced her practiced performance. Judge Morales signed the criminal referral form, handed it to the bailiff. I'm also referring Dr. Strand's conduct to the Wisconsin Medical Examining Board for license review. His evaluation methods violate basic professional standards. I walked out of the courthouse with Ray and Elizabeth. The morning air felt cleaner than it had in months. 3 days later, the Milwaukee County District Attorney held a press conference. Elder financial exploitation case, she said. Clear evidence of conspiracy. Multiple defendants facing felony charges. The charging documents listed everything: Vanessa Kowalczyk, conspiracy to commit fraud, attempted financial exploitation of an elderly person, perjury. Dr. Philip Strand, identical charges plus professional misconduct. Brett and Melissa named as co-conspirators pending further investigation. Text messages, security footage, and coordinated testimony made prosecution straightforward. The DA emphasized mandatory minimum sentences, felony convictions, permanent criminal records. The firm's managing partners received a subpoena as part of the criminal investigation. They conducted their own review immediately. Company policy required internal review when employees became subjects of law enforcement inquiries. The review took 5 business days. Brett's supervisor found the plagiarized analysis, the emails coordinating conspiracy using company resources, the confidential client information accessed while building the incompetence case. The partners terminated his employment for cause on a Wednesday morning. No severance package. Security escort from the building. Cardboard box of personal items from his desk. His nameplate rattling against framed certificates. Security guards' radio crackling behind him. Brett's colleagues watched him carry that box through the office. Wire-frame glasses reflecting fluorescent lights. 35 years old. MBA, regional investment community small enough that everyone would know within hours. Courtney filed for divorce the following Tuesday. Her firm's partners had pressured her. A corporate lawyer married to a potential criminal defendant affected client confidence. Self-preservation trumped marriage vows. The divorce papers demanded Brett move from their condo within 30 days. She kept everything. Climate-controlled wine cellar. Designer furniture, retirement accounts in her name. Brett moved his boxes into a studio apartment in West Dallas. Entry-level job applications on his laptop. Public defender consultation scheduled for the criminal charges. Melissa's country club friends learned the details through media coverage. Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel ran the story above the fold. Associated Press picked it up within hours. By evening, construction forums nationwide were sharing the coverage. Conservatorship fraud, family conspiracy exposed. Security footage quotes included. The committee called Melissa on Thursday, voted her removal from all volunteer positions. Committee integrity, they said. Country club invitations decreased. Tennis partners found scheduling conflicts. Tennis partner Emily spotted her in the parking lot, made eye contact, got in her car, drove away without a word. Derek questioned their marriage foundation during dinner one evening. No shouting, just cold assessment of what he'd witnessed in that courtroom. You rehearsed those tears. Pause. I watched the footage 3 times. I was trying to help our family, Melissa said. Derek had been covering her minimum payments for months. He stopped the day after the hearing. I'm taking over household accounts. You're cut off until you make genuine amends with your father. Credit card companies began collection proceedings within 2 weeks. $47,000 in debt. Collection agencies called daily. Her scrapbook room sat untouched. Perfect albums documenting relationships that existed only in photographs. The district attorney's asset investigation discovered Vanessa's storage unit during financial disclosure review. 10 by 20 space rented under her maiden name. The investigator's report listed the contents. Unopened boxes. Original packaging. Tags still attached. Chanel, Gucci, Louis Vuitton, Prada. Chanel bag still wrapped in tissue paper. Gucci shoes, size 7, tags reading $4,000. Never worn. The inventory took 6 hours to complete. $180,000 in purchases Larry never knew existed. Evidence photographed for the fraud case. Physical manifestation of the greed driving the conspiracy. Vanessa's criminal defense attorney reviewed the evidence. Security footage, text messages, storage unit inventory. Told her the prosecution case was strong. Recommended plea negotiations. The medical examining board scheduled Strand's license hearing. Previous impeached testimony reviewed. Current evaluation methods examined. Patient records subpoenaed showing pattern of convenient diagnoses. His practice suspended pending investigation. Malpractice insurance notified. Referrals to other psychiatrists required for current patients. I filed divorce papers at the family court clerk's office on a Monday morning. Elizabeth handled the paperwork. Prenuptial agreement invalidated by Vanessa's fraudulent conduct. She received nothing from the marriage settlement. No alimony, no property division, no access to business assets. The lake house would be sold and proceeds returned to accounts she'd planned to empty. Construction industry colleagues started calling that same week. Competitors offered support. Subcontractors expressed loyalty. Suppliers extended preferential terms. Ray answered 73 calls that week. Competitors offering support. Subcontractors pledging loyalty. Local television news covered the story Thursday evening. Milwaukee contractor defeats family's fraud scheme. Sympathetic portrait of a working-class man protecting his life's work through meticulous documentation. The story included interviews with Ray about the 30 years of logs. Elizabeth about elder exploitation patterns. Industry colleagues about Larry's reputation. Construction forums shared the coverage nationwide. Reddit threads hit 10,000 comments. Trade associations sent Ray supportive emails. "Your phone's been ringing off the hook," he said. "I know. Construction News wants an interview. So does the Journal Sentinel. Industry conference in Chicago invited you to speak about documentation practices." "Not interested," Ray nodded. "Figured. Just wanted you to know the offers are there." I looked at the blue binders lining the office walls. 40 years of daily entries. The foundation that saved everything. The business kept running. Crew showed up on time. Projects finished on schedule. Invoices matched ledgers to the penny. Vanessa stood before the judge in county-issued orange. No designer dress. No makeup. Hands cuffed. "Yes, Your Honor. I accept the terms. 18 months prison. 5 years probation. Full restitution. Felony convictions on permanent records." Strand accepted the same terms. Both plea deals 2 months after the verdict. Brett's charges remained pending. Melissa avoided prosecution by cooperating with investigators. Her testimony confirmed the conspiracy timeline. Derek told her the marriage would continue only if she completed therapy and made genuine amends. She agreed, had no other options. I received a handwritten letter from Melissa 3 months after the verdict. 6 pages. "I lied under oath. Called you incompetent." Practiced my crying. "No therapy erases that. I read it once, filed it with the court documents. Didn't respond." Ray mentioned a construction industry conference invitation. I wasn't interested. 400 contractors in attendance. Standing ovation when they mentioned documentation defeating fraud. My father knew. Barbara knew. Ray knew. I'd learned the hard way. But the documentation had been there when needed. 40 years of truth that couldn't be manipulated or denied. Paper doesn't lie, people do. The difference saved everything I'd built. 6 months after Judge Morales dismissed the petition, I promoted Ray to Vice President of Operations. The equity papers sat on my desk between us at headquarters. 15% ownership stake. His name on the business he'd helped build for 30 years. Ray's hands steadied on the papers. 15% ownership. His name beside mine on the business he'd helped build for 30 years. He looked up, jaw working. "I don't know what to say. Say you'll keep doing what you've been doing. Just with the title and compensation you should have had years ago." He signed. His son Miguel started the following Monday as project manager. 28 years old, degree from UW Milwaukee, his father's discipline without the Marine Corps. First project. Commercial renovation downtown, same building where Ray started 30 years ago. Third generation of loyalty beginning where blood family had failed. I established the Kowalczyk Construction Scholarship Fund. $500,000 initial funding. Enough for 8 full-ride scholarships annually. Applications reviewed quarterly by Ray and the Industry Association Board. First recipients announced next month. The announcement went out through the Industry Association. Money honoring the trade that built my life, helping kids whose parents worked with their hands. Rosa introduced me to Carmen 3 months ago at her daughter's graduation party. Retired teacher, widow, 60 years old with kind eyes, and zero interest in construction contracts or bank statements. We had coffee, then dinner, now Friday evenings at her place, conversation over simple meals she made herself, taking things slow. I attended Braden's soccer game last weekend. Derek brought both boys, sat with me on the aluminum bleachers. Melissa stayed home. Derek said she was working on things in therapy. I nodded, didn't ask for details. Braden scored in the second half, turned toward the stands, cleats digging grass. His eyes swept past the other parents' section, stopped on me and Derek. He raised his hand. I raised mine back. I work 4 days a week now. Fridays belong to the garage workshop and the pocket watches that need patient hands. I donated 3 restored pieces to Milwaukee Public Museum last month. 1938, Hamilton, 1947, Elgin, 1952, Belova. Small cards beside each one explaining the restoration process, the construction career that taught me precision matters. Melissa sent a handwritten letter 3 months after the verdict. 6 pages. I lied under oath, called you incompetent. He practiced my crying. No therapy erases that. I read it once, filed it with the court documents. Didn't respond. Vanessa and Dr. Strand accepted plea deals 2 months after the verdict. Stood before the judge in county-issued orange. No designer dress, no makeup, hands cuffed. Yes, Your Honor, I accept the terms. 18 months prison, 5 years probation, full restitution. Brett's charges remained pending while his attorney negotiated. Melissa avoided prosecution by cooperating with investigators, her testimony confirming the conspiracy timeline. Derek told her the marriage would continue only if she completed therapy and made genuine amends. 6 months minimum with Dr. Patricia Chen, weekly sessions. Progress reports he reviewed personally. She agreed, had no other options. Ray mentioned a construction industry conference invitation. I wasn't interested. 400 contractors in attendance. Standing ovation when they mentioned documentation defeating fraud. The Chicago Hilton Ballroom smelled like coffee and printed programs when I spoke there last month. 200 contractors in the audience, most of them younger than Brett, notebooks open on laps. The podium microphone squealed feedback until the tech adjusted it. I stood at the podium with my notes, thought about my father's words written at the top. I told them about my father's factory shift logs. The 40 years of ledgers that saved everything. Most of the questions came after. How detailed, how long to keep them, what format works best, whatever system you'll actually maintain, I said. My father used factory shift logs. I used ledgers. Ray used composition notebooks. The method matters less than the commitment. I drove home that evening, stopped at the garage workshop. The 1952 Hamilton sat on my workbench, movement seized, balance wheel bent. 4 months of Sundays ahead, maybe 5. I picked up my loop and tweezers, found the meditation in tiny mechanisms and precise movements. Good systems don't need excuses. They just work. Paper doesn't lie. My father knew. Barbara knew. Ray knew. Now I knew it bone deep. 40 years of documentation saved everything I built. Not because I expected family to become enemies. Because the work itself deserved that respect. The watch ticked, steady, patient, waiting for hands willing to restore it correctly. I picked up my tweezers, got to work.